My name is Jennifer Flanagan, and I am going to spend the next 20 minutes with you talking about girls and young women in STEM. And because it's a smaller group, that gives us the opportunity to have more dialogue and more discussion. So I do encourage you to write comments in the chat or ask questions in the chat. There is a question period at the end. I was going to leave some time for questions, but because of the size of the group, I'm super happy to be responsive to the chat. So if there's anything that you want to share about your experience or questions that you have, please do that, and I will keep an eye to that as well. So let's get started. And again, thanks for taking the time to spend talking about this topic, which is such a critical topic globally. I certainly know in all of the countries that you're representing, this continues to be an issue, and certainly I am coming at this from a perspective in Canada, and that is where I'm going to ground a lot of this content. But again, very applicable in a global context. So just to give you a snapshot first of Actua, so that's the organization that I am the CEO of, and in Canada, we, of course, province and territories, 13 provinces and territories across the country. Actua is a national organization, so we deliver across all of those 13 provinces and territories. And our mandate is to promote confidence and skills in science, technology, engineering, and math. So we do that for youth right from kindergarten. So here, that's 5-year-olds, right through to 26-year-olds, who are the people that we actually employ to deliver our programs. So to give you a sense of our model, and of course, I'm going to be talking about this topic, and then I'm going to come back and talk about what Actua does to encourage more girls in STEM. But it's helpful for you to have a little context. So, and happy to see other people joining. Navina from Slovenia in Europe, that's fantastic, welcome. And people coming at this topic from lots of different angles. So as professionals in this field, important for us to know about this and to care deeply about this. As parents, as people who have young women in our lives, but also potentially as young women ourselves who are still facing barriers and needing to be aware of some of the challenges that exist to pursuing higher levels within the STEM field. So in Canada, we are a very multicultural country, and that said, we are struggling right now as a country with some really horrible events of late that involve very deep-seated racism, and those are involving both our Muslim community and our Indigenous communities. So this country is in a moment of deep reflection and struggle. It's customary, certainly for Actua, to always recognize when we do presentations the Indigenous lands that we're speaking from. So today I'm in Ottawa, which is the capital of the country. It's also unceded Algonquin territory, so recognizing the Algonquin people whose land we are presenting from. This topic is incredibly relevant to what's happening in Canada, and in fact, what's happening around the world. And that is the efforts to promote diversity and inclusion and equity. We're talking about it in STEM, but it certainly has really important connections to this topic on a whole. So to get into the STEM piece, oops, sorry, thank you. Okay. So to get into to the STEM piece specifically, of course, STEM jobs, as they are in all the countries that you represent, are incredibly important to the economic prosperity of the country. The STEM industry is a cornerstone of innovation in Canada, certainly, and we have a lot of fast-growing fast-growing sort of hubs of technology development. So places like Montreal and Waterloo, who are, quickly climbing to the top of fastest-growing tech hubs in North America. Montreal becoming a world center for artificial intelligence, for example. And technology has, needless to say, has become not only an imperative in our economy, but also in all of our lives as we've moved through the pandemic and really been forced to do everything we normally do online. The other thing that is happening, of course, is the recognition of the importance of STEM skyrocketing due to the pandemic, and the recognition that fighting the pandemic and dealing with the pandemic has really been on the shoulders of a lot of scientists and healthcare professionals and technology folks who have been working on innovations to guide us and to advance us through the pandemic. So all that to say that the growth of these sectors is significant. This is in Canada, for example, and you can see that between February and October of 2020, you can see that uptick in STEM occupations in Canada. So an 8.7, almost a 9% increase in STEM jobs, and that represents roughly 100,000 new jobs created in that time period, well above the norm. So all that to say that technology continues to play a significant role in the country and in future employment opportunities. But with that comes the need to recognize this ongoing gap, which is in gender equity. I mean, diversity broadly, and I'll actually talk about that because Actua works across the boards in terms of not only encouraging girls and young women and people who identify with those groups, but also we work extensively with Indigenous youth and with other racialized youth, including youth who are facing other socioeconomic challenges. So the work to recognize that there's a massive gap, even though these fields are growing, even though there's more jobs, we're still really struggling with representation in those areas. And, in Canada, at least, people that are in these jobs continue to look more like this slide, right? So we have a very dramatically tipped science and tech field in the favor of mostly men. And we continue to see and experience those kind of iconic technology folks as male, the people like Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, all of whom certainly do not reflect the kind of diversity that we know we need to see in these fields in the future. Gender inequality in technology and in STEM more broadly is just still very much a reality, even though a lot of people would like to think that, we've been working on this forever and we've made a lot of strides, but there's still, massive challenges. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those. So in Canada, Canadian women are far less likely to pursue higher paying STEM fields, such as engineering and computer science. So that is still reigns true across the boards. There are certainly fields in science and in some specialties within engineering where we've made significant gains, but continue to be underrepresented. And these, again, are the highest paid and most plentiful jobs of the future. So this has broad economic and social impacts. This is another important one, and we'll maybe speak to some people on the call. 50% of women in tech roles leave by the age of 35. And that is, to me, astounding still to see those numbers and to know that, a lot of that is due to the kind of culture and the support systems that lack in the tech sector for women who in Canada still do maintain the majority of the responsibilities in the home and with children as well. And this is reflected in colleges and universities in terms of enrollment rates in first year. We do have some really bright success stories. So for example, U of T engineering is coming close to hitting 50% of undergraduate students in engineering being female. So first year, I think they're in the low 40s, which is, they're leading the country. There's a few other institutions that are approaching that. So that's been years and years of hard work on their part. But again, across the country, the average is still quite low. This is where I want to just tell you about, kind of anchored back to girls and women in STEM, and what young people in Canada anyway are thinking about. So last year, or just the year before last, Actua went out across the country and talked to young people in Canada. And we asked them about their attitudes and their confidence about technology, about digital skills, about coding. And we were really interested to know, do they recognize that these are really critical, important skills? That was a really important first question. Do they see this as necessary for their future? And then the second, the subsequent questions were around how confident they were and whether or not they had enough opportunities to learn. So the good news was, across the board, student or kids, parents, boys, girls, they all recognized that technology skills were really important to their future, and would be important in whatever career they chose to pursue. And that's where the kind of good news ended with this. And as you can see with some of these stats, so over 50% of the boys were extremely interested in careers involving coding or programming, while only 27% of girls expressed that same interest. Boys express more confidence, so to the tune of almost double. So boys are almost twice as confident in these areas as girls. And then the third piece is around opportunities. So we asked them, have you had opportunities to learn these skills, or or practice them or explore them outside of school? And twice as many boys had those opportunities as girls. So boys are thinking about this more at this age, and they're twice as confident, and they've had twice the number of opportunities. And that, again, speaks to the broader issue of, who's facilitating them to have these opportunities, and why aren't girls getting the same level of opportunity. So we know, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you that, the diversity and inclusion and equity is not just for equity's sake. It is all, which is important, but it's also because it leads us to better results in these fields. It leads us to better products. It leads us to better research. We're more innovative, and it just has better bottom line results for companies that are more diverse. So gender equality is very linked to better economic outcomes. So the more that we invest in this, the better it is for all of us. So how do we inspire the next generation of women as STEM leaders? So what we know is that, progress kind of needs to hit a tipping point. And we haven't hit that tipping point, despite the fact that we've been working through this for a number of years. I think that during the pandemic, we have the opportunity to, there's a resurgence of interest in this area of recognition. Women have been disproportionately impacted and have left the field in vast numbers. And, this is something that we need to take advantage of as a moment in time. So a couple of things about how we do that. So how do we get more girls engaged? The way we approach this is by engaging girls early and often. We know that STEM education and getting them involved in STEM programming builds skills that are necessary for them to be successful in these fields in the future, but also just to generally have the confidence and the skills that they need to continue looking for these and taking these opportunities on. So the programs that exist, especially outside of schools for girls to do this, are really important. Mentors and role models, which we all know and we've heard over and over and over again, but it remains to be very important. If girls don't see anyone that looks or sounds like them, then they're going to continue not to envision that as what they can be in the future. So that changing how we're presenting and who we're presenting, in terms of who does STEM or who does, computer science, continues to be very, very critical. Creating safe spaces is, of course, something that we work on as an organization that's working with youth, especially vulnerable youth, making sure that they have a supportive environment where they can explore and create and make mistakes and learn. That has now shifted for us into online spaces, of course. Kids are online more than they ever have been. And there's a whole host of issues, and I don't have time to get into those, but girls in Canada, at least, are experiencing a huge increase in online victimization and online things like trafficking and radicalization to violence. All kinds of very negative things are happening. So the importance of creating safe spaces online has also become very critical. And then from a systemic change perspective, we know that this starts at the top, and we need to continue to advocate for the kind of changes from the boardroom to the C-suite to the way that policies are constructed by governments, all of those being incredibly important. So putting this all into practice, I want to give you a sense of how Actua does this work very quickly. So we have a national girls program, which is a series of all-girl initiatives where we give girls those opportunities outside of school to learn about and practice coding and computer science and other digital skills, where they're able to then apply those skills to real life problems. They're exposed to mentors and role models, and really they have a chance to see that this, in fact, is a field that they can be really good at. Just to highlight two other initiatives before I open things up for questions, but I mentioned the online space, and I know this is an issue, again, across the globally that we need to pay attention to, and that is the environment that girls are experiencing when they go online. And how do we make that safe, and how do we make sure that all the good work we're doing to encourage them in these fields isn't negated by an online negative experience? So we've actually developed content to help girls be safe online. So it does a couple of things. One, it sort of safety proofs them online by giving them the skills to know how to keep themselves safe online and how to be a good digital citizen. But it's also promoting careers in cybersecurity, which we know, again, are plentiful around the globe, and super important for us to increase the level of women in those fields. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And with that, I'd love to just wrap up and see if there are any questions that anyone has. I'm open to questions or comments on anything that I've presented. And can people talk or just in the chat? In the chat. So yeah, please do share anything that you might want to share in the chat. Yes. So someone asked if they can get a copy of the slides, and I believe there must be some mechanism for us to do that. We'll find out about that for sure. And then someone else. Oh, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that you're a mentor yourself. We don't work anywhere else outside of Canada currently. It's such a huge area for us to fill, and there's a lot of kids we're still not even reaching here. That said, we're super happy to share resources. Our website, actua.ca, you can find a whole bunch of this information, what we're doing, how we're engaging teachers and parents. A lot of the thought leadership work that we're doing is there as well. So I really encourage you to check out our website. You can also, I share a lot of that through Twitter. My Twitter handle is @ActuaCEO. So I'm going to put it here. And then you can also follow @Actua Canada. How do you find the mentors for them in Canada, and what age group is the program for? So the age group for girls, we typically work with girls, again, right from 5-year-olds to 26-year-olds, but we tend to work with girls in late elementary school and early middle school. So that would be girls age 9 to 14. And we get the mentors from a whole bunch of different places, from universities and colleges, from our corporate partners. So Actua has a lot of companies that we work with that support our work and allow their employees to be role models and mentors. So that works really well. And of course, there's all kinds of vetting and training that happens with those mentors. And with that, I don't see any other questions. So, okay, I'll answer that quickly. So how have I started? I just founded It's Female to. That's great. I'm so happy to see all these initiatives. Yes, please do reach out and connect with me. The best way is through social media. So again, @Actua CEO. And we started this initiative. It was very grassroots. So groups of students really recognized the need to do this and the lack of opportunity for youth to learn about engineering and science at the time. So this is more than 25 years ago, and started an initiative that really has just grown over the past 3 decades. So I do encourage you to connect with us on social. Again, actua.ca is our website, and you can reach us there to continue this conversation. So with that, I will wrap up our session, and thank you again for attending.